when someone comes up with, oh look, we have this new thing, his reaction is, oh, that's nice. Now let's look into the details. And lots of times he's been the first one I've seen where, oh, well, this was a good idea, but it didn't work. And I had heard that 6 months before from him. He's very skeptical about advance, which I think for a research doctor is a very good attitude. Rather than chasing off after the newest horse. He wants to look at it. He's changed. He's always been very open about his personal health regime and what he does and what he doesn't do. And there are a number of things that he used to swear by that now he says, no, not doing that anymore.
Yeah. So do you have astigmatism? That I had one of those when I had my surgery. They pulled out my lens and poof, the whole light thing problem I was having, similar to yours in a way, just disappeared. So, you know, maybe they can put a lens shift in there.
I have no idea what it is or if it's just something
Okay.
I'm imagining. I'm not.
Yeah.
Astigmatism is what I was trying to say. That's the rotation thing that I was describing. I couldn't think of the name of it, but that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can think of a couple of mechanisms that could be involved, and I know that I don't know. And at this stage of the game, I am content with that. I'm going to go back and talk to the researchers and say, I observed this in my new eyes. Thank you very much for them, but I noticed this. And they will say, oh, that's normal. And I'll say, well, boo crap. And they will say, oh, really? No one else has reported that. And I forget how many thousand it is now. It's a low number. Let's see what that could be. Do you have any guesses? And I have a guess. And if what I am seeing is really there, and they can tell that by looking into my eye with a camera, then there's at least one possible way that could be fixed, not for me, but for, well, maybe even for me, but for future patients. I was a little, well, anyway, that's not this topic. This topic is,
there's always two things that are important for anybody to be able to say, and that is, one, I don't know, and two, I changed my mind.
Yeah. And Peter does that a lot. And a lot of it is surprising how many people have YouTube channels about diet and weight loss and life extension, and how many books there are. I have kind of, well, when did I start doing that? I think I started doing life extension thinking back in the early 70s with something called the Cron diet, calorie restricted optimal nutrition, which for about a year had me chasing exotic seaweeds and measuring things by the gram on my plate. And I gave up on it after a while because it was just too much work.
Tom, that research on calorie restriction and longevity,
Yeah. Yes.
that research was the outcome of research undertaken by a Dr. Roy Walford of Biosphere 2,
Yes.
when the people in the biosphere couldn't produce enough calories because they were mostly eating a vegetable diet. Their calorie set point was restricted by something like 20%, but not deficient in vitamins and minerals. Anyway,
No,
eventually,
it was considerably more restricted than that as they had crop failures. But go on. Yeah.
but
That's the doctor
they
I
had
was thinking of.
remarkable good health in spite of that.
Yeah.
They eventually did a long-term rhesus monkey study at the University of Wisconsin in Madison on the effects of calorie restriction over the lifespan of monkeys. And what we found out, and it took a long time for those monkeys to go from birth to death, what we found out eventually about calorie restriction, because I was an adherent and early proponent of calorie restriction in my early 20s. I did it for about a year. At one point, I was so weak that I could barely climb up a flight of stairs. I was
That's an indicator that this is a bad diet.
I was
or you
doing
got
this.
something else wrong.
I was doing this in college for about a year, and then I gave up on it. But anyway, what we found out much later was that the outcome of these trials and experiments were, we knew as far back as the 1920s that if you calorie restricted animals from birth to death, then it lengthened their natural lifespan by a good margin. But we found out that if you start the calorie restrictive diet after adolescence, meaning if you don't start it from birth, and nobody's going to advocate starving little babies and young children, that's going to fall into the realm of Child Protective Services. If you
No, it's something that happens naturally in different societies.
If you start
they don't have enough food to go around,
if you start calorie restriction in adulthood after adolescence, it doesn't confer the same life extension properties on the human subject because it has to be started from birth.
Jason,
that's what we
I have
found
my
out about
hand raised. I'm sorry.
Yes. Lino?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a little shift of topic. When I was in the hospital, I came up with a question. The average high school student from records has a vocabulary of about 40,000 words. And so I would ask a doctor, so in your first year of medical school, how many words do you think you used? And I think there's a growth professionally and all kinds of stuff year after year in a person's vocabulary. And it was just an interesting question. So end of that topic, but thank you for listening.
I have a random bit. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to respond on that. When you talk about vocabulary, there's really two types, you might say. There's active vocabulary and passive vocabulary. So a person's active vocabulary is usually much smaller than their passive vocabulary. The words they use all the time, every day, is a small subset of the words they actually kind of know. If you ask them what the meaning is, they can pretty much give you the meaning of the word, even though they don't normally use it. So I'm not sure if you're talking about active or passive vocabulary. When you say 40,000, sounds like you mean passive vocabulary.
Yeah, that was just when I was researching it, of course, on the internet. So, and I just asked what's vocabulary of the average high school student upon graduation, and I didn't discriminate between active or passive, which is great advice. Thank you. I'll include that in my thinking. And I don't know. It was just a question, a thought experiment, if you will, based upon a question that popped in my head.
But it is true that if you're more educated, usually your active vocabulary might be larger than some people's passive vocabularies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for doctors, you know, I would imagine it is because, you know, you sit down and they've got in their brain, a book of symptoms, you know, they don't go look things up. And, you know, they talk and just plain old this medicine, that medicine, does this, that.
Want a career but don't have experience?
Prior to the Google UX design certificate, I didn't have any experience in UX design at all.
I didn't know.
Someone's looking at something else on there.
What's the name of the muscle that's
Really like
curling my little finger?
Gradually making its way in.
I have no idea. But I'm
Yeah.
sure it has a name.
Yes.
Yeah, it's some kind of flexor or extensor. I'm not sure which would, probably the flexor.
And at that, you're ahead of me in the game.
Well, I hurt my hand about 10 weeks ago, and I've been kind of doing some physical therapy because it strains some tendons and ligaments in a couple of my fingers. So
Ooh.
that's kind of why I know a little bit about that.
And reading, and I think reading is, in my personal case, it was reading, you know, hundreds of books. I think that built my vocabulary far more than high school, to be honest.
Yeah, that's.
Can't remember the last time I did a quadratic equation.
Yesterday.
Thanks.
We had, in high school, we had an assignment, since I was in the advanced English class, we had an assignment to read a book a week.
Cool.
For starting at the end of our junior year. We had to turn in 50 book reports to graduate.
Does anybody know, has anybody heard from George Kubik? He didn't attend Brian's memorial service, which I found was quite odd. Those two had been close friends and colleagues for quite some years back. And I don't know if George was even made aware of Brian's passing. I find it odd, though, that he didn't attend the memorial service. I would have expected to see him there.
He was aware of it, that he had something else that he couldn't.
I was aware of it and couldn't attend. Grumpy about it all day.
I'm talking about George Kubik.
Yes.
Yes.
Really? Well, that
talked
speaks
with him.
volumes.
I've talked with him a couple times in the last few weeks, but yeah, he couldn't attend.
Was he out of the country?
I don't remember.
I was down in Waseca.
Yeah. No, that's quite a ways away. I'm just surprised. That's why I was wondering if George, but the person I was trying to remember before was Bill Peter. And if anybody knows if he is still alive or could figure out if he's still alive, I would appreciate an update. I have not been able to find an obituary or any update. He was a futurist, came to our meeting for over a decade. And Tom, you knew Bill Peter better than most of us. Tom Trites. Tom Walsh, you were kind of a new member towards the time he sort of disappeared.
I do not know what's happened to Bill. I haven't heard from him at least 5 years. which means that I haven't heard from him. It doesn't mean anything else.
Hand raised?
Uh,
I have a couple of things. There's a random bit. There's a Google has DeepMind has come up with a process for improving microchip design. It's an AI version of how to design microchips. And I posted a link, a video to YouTube video in the chat. This is kind of the same structure of a process that AlphaFold had or AlphaZero had, but they're just taking on the efficiency of laying out the microchip, strictly processing it as if it were a game, and how it optimized on the distances between components, and all of the thermal problems and so forth are all included in this. And so AI is actually improving itself by improving the chips that it's running on. The second thing I wanted to point out is that I've been able to go in on all the videos that I'm producing, the Zoom videos I'm producing and pushing up onto YouTube. I've been able to add chapters to those. That's fairly easy to do with the description, just do the show times. So if anybody goes to those videos and wants to just watch a specific part or bypass the random bits, I put random bits at the beginning, and then I put the beginning of the program in there so you can find it relatively easily. It's in the description. For some reason, I'm not able to get these chapters to show up in the timeline, and I've done some research about that, and I don't know why I can't get those random bits to show up on the timeline. If anybody knows how to fix that, let me know.
the idea of the Google AI designing chips is terrifying. We had trouble in the 80s looking at x-rays of chips and trying to figure out what they were doing. We knew what ours were doing, but looking at competitors' chips and trying to decide what was an intentional change and what was an accidental change and what might be from where the links were from point A to point B might be a link that could be used for sabotage. And if you execute a particular piece of code, the chip will self-destruct or alter its way of thinking. And having an AI, that's going to have to be a very, very trusted AI. And it's going to be a very, very, very hot target for a penetration team to have it pretend to have one master when it has another.
So oversight would be a challenge on that.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah.
AIs are already a black box. We don't really know how they reach some of their conclusions and that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The human body in some ways is still a black box. We're not sure how it's working. We have ideas, but we're not sure. Well, I know.
Did you happen to ask AI, how would you go about this process? I've had excellent work or results. Just asking, here's the problem I'm dealing with. What do I need to solve it? So I commend that to you as an idea. Thank you.
Dear Google AI, how do I sabotage you?
Or how do I
thinking a
prevent you
benign
from
question.
sabotaging us?
And I'm so much the opposite. I'm extraordinarily happy for AI's placement in human life. And I think that everybody's life will be multiplied many-fold in quality of just about everything. And to be I think that they can build in tools, just like you're talking about, that say if you go to this kind of question, we're not going to answer it. And I think there's a lot of words to that effect anyway. End of my thought.
What is did people watch the rollout of the cyber cab robo taxi, and what was your reaction to it?
So,
First,
I've heard of it.
Elon Musk rolled out the cyber taxi, robo taxi. There was the actual vehicle has been was shown. They actually got some space in Warner Brothers studio, and they had 50 vehicles going around, driving around, taking people on rides, and they had robots. They had about 25 or 30 robots walking around with people and interacting with people and so forth.
Yep. Adds quality time to human life.
It's probably all available on YouTube if you want to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a random bit. The Indian Navy and the Italian Navy recently conducted joint exercise operations in the Indian Ocean. And just this past week, a spy drone was spotted off of a West Indian Coast naval base, and they believe that's either Chinese or Pakistani in origin. We know that it's a spy drone because it was flying in a restricted area 2 or 3 miles up, and it put the base. The intelligence services analyzed this drone, and they went to full security alert. We know that the Chinese have contracted with the Pakistani government to establish a semi-permanent, if not permanent, Chinese naval base in Pakistan. And this alliance between this naval partnership between the Italians actually sent their only aircraft carrier to this naval exercise. And so at that time, the Indian and Italian navies were conducting joint operations together, but this drone spotting kind of freaked them out a little bit. I put my money at the fact that it's Chinese in origin, because the Chinese consider the Indian Navy a threat, which is why China has partnered with Pakistan. But there's just one quick thing I wanted to mention while we're still in random bits. We talked about Middle East oil prices last week, and the day after last Saturday, the about 2 days after the Saturday meeting on Monday, gas prices jumped about 30 cents a gallon. Well, some might consider that a precipitous rise in the price of fuel, but we had talked about the potential of destabilizing effects on oil prices here in the United States in relation to Iran and Israel ongoing military tensions. And the Iranians are actually currently frantically trying to open up diplomatic channels right now because they fear that the Israelis are going to strike their facilities once again. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. I think, are we about ready to start?
I'd like to respond to the last two bits, if I
Sure,
could.
yeah, I just a time checker.
Number one, about this time of year, gas prices always fluctuate because they're going from one formulation for warm weather months to a different formulation for cold weather months. But when I bought gas at Costco just a day or two ago, I got it at $2.95 a gallon. So prices aren't terrible here.
No.
At least not at this point. As far as Lino's how he feels about AI, I just want to say that any technology, especially one potentially as disruptive as AI, is going to change everything, has both pluses and minuses.
Yep.
And because this has potential being changing our society a lot, the disruptions could go both ways, positive and negative, and they can be fairly large in both directions. So we have to be pretty vigilant about those negative large effects. So I don't have the same equanimity about it that Lino does.
I would say they will be changes in both directions, and some of them large.
Yeah.
And we'll have open AI warfare among countries and all of that. I agree with you in that regard.
Well, we're going to have warfare on one level between the different AI providers.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, just a quick side point. I paid $2.84 at Speedway this week. Pretty amazing.
Oh, the price? Oh.
Yeah, I think part of this, when we were down in Wasika, I think we paid, it was 280 something. And the clerk was upset because they had too much. Apparently there's a Minnesota regulation that after a certain date, they have to change over. And if they haven't sold the summer gas, then they essentially have to hold it over winter, or I don't know what you would do. Add alcohol to it. Becomes an unsaleable commodity in Minnesota, at least at the retail level. She was really upset. Anyway, it's 10 o'clock. Last open bits. No hands. Okay.
Here's the topic of this group.
Today's topic?
Today's topic is, how do you live to be 150 years old?
Okay.
Or can you?
How do you do that?
You give me all your money. No, it's an active question. How the target became 150, I'm not sure. I've tried to chase that down and couldn't really come to anything. The idea of living longer has been in our society for probably as long as we've had a society. And how to do that has been the subject of a lot of study and experiments. And today's topic first started with someone suggested the book Undo It by Dean Ornish. to me, and while I was looking at that, I thought, well, who else is writing about this? Because I was a follower of some of Dean Ornish's dietary plans for a while and finally gave up on them for various reasons, and looked to see who else was writing about this and found a number of people. If you go down to my local half price books, they have a special shelf labeled longevity, and it had, last time I was there, 35 books with longevity either in the title or on the subtext of the book cover. It's a hot topic. The people want to live longer. People want to live better. And I started digging into things, and yeah, perpetual topic recently has been, I'm going to live to be 150. There are a couple of people who are saying this, and they have various schemes and whatever for achieving this, and most of them have kind of abandoned it very quietly because they don't think they're going to make it. The there are two things really involved here. One is called lifespan, which is how long do you live? Jack was out there, 150, you've made it. The other thing is something called health span, which is how long are you healthy? And health span usually goes down here and you die. And once you hit like somewhere in your 40s, 50s, early 60s, your health starts to decline. You become more susceptible to any number of diseases. And it's kind of a, I showed a nice smooth curve, but actually it's kind of a bump, 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 bump. As things come along and you start to come apart. New lenses in my eyes. A case in point. One of the people who's really been preaching about the difference between lifespan and health span is a doctor named Peter Attia. He has a YouTube channel, and I've followed him for several years off and on. He used to be a professional athlete, became a doctor, has this problem, had that problem. And he got involved in longevity research and then fitness research and how the two of them played off of each other. The reason I pay so much attention to him and the videos are so focused on him is because he seems to be a real skeptic. Most of the books and stuff I've read are, the doctor makes some discovery and yay, we've solved it. Da-da, 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 da-da. Bring out the horns and the parades. And Peter looks at what he's found and says, oh, that's interesting, but you didn't count for that. Or there was this little piece that kind of makes that fall apart. He's very skeptical about all of this. And that, to a certain extent, I suppose, kind of fits my personality. Maybe because I had a domineering father who always knew what was best. He talks a little bit about doctors who are impressed by saving cells. Well, that's important, but bodies are more complicated than cells. And some people are very impressed by research on mice. Mice are mammals, not cells. But mice are also different than humans in a lot of ways. And sometimes the research maps well onto humans, and sometimes what's very good for mice is not very good for humans. And then there are people who test with monkeys. Monkeys are much closer to humans than mice are. And the research tracks a little better, but doing research on monkeys is exceedingly expensive, and it takes a very long time. So how do you look at these different pieces of research, and what do you find to apply to your own life? Yeah, you're right, Tom. Ornish is really anti-fat, and that doesn't work. At least it doesn't work in my body. It may work in his, but it doesn't. The best thing about the Undo It book, I thought, was the exercise band exercise routines, which I thought were really well formed and very useful. And if you are doing exercise using exercise bands, I urge you to try it. Exercise bands are cheap. They cost $5 or $10, and they are definitely good exercises, especially if you're moving from a sedentary life into a more active life. I don't know that I don't want to be 150. I want to live forever. Don't kid yourself. I think I can catch up with one of my science fiction heroes, Lazarus Long, proper legal name Woodrow Wilson Smith, character devised by Robert Heinlein, who lives through several thousand years of human history. Starting in 1914. And the most significant book about Lazarus Long is Timing Up for Love. Lazarus appears in stories before that. He appears in a number of books after that. He's quite a character. Anyway, to the videos. Who's playing the videos today? Stan?
I don't have them.
Oh.
I will.
I received your email with a list.
Did you send me an email, Tom?
I thought I did.
Hold on.
May I ask a brief question?
Yes.
When you say 150 years, is that of a cerebral life? In other words, your brain is, working away. Physical life, or you just got to be both for 150 years, and your immortality. I think, if you're willing to give up the physical side of your life, you could have a long, long cerebral life. End of thought. Thank you.
The goal is, the hypothetical goal in this discussion is that your body, with you driving it on your wetware brain, lasts for 150 years. There are some people who are making kind of serious tries at doing this. They're trying to find the optimum diet, the optimum exercise, the optimum amount of sleep to carry on. Most of them seem to drop out of the race after a couple of years for one reason or another. I wish them well, but I don't think they're going to make it. One of the things Dr. Attia has is what he calls the Centurion's Marathon, or the Centurion's Decathlon. What does he want to do if he lives to be 100? And this is something you can think about. He wants to be able to pick up and hold his great-grandkids. He wants to be able to carry 4 bags of groceries up 4 flights of stairs. He wants to a number of things. But to be able to do that at the age of 100, we know as we age, our physical abilities are going to decline. So to be able to do these things at 100, what would you be able to do at 90? What would you be able to do at 80? What do I have to be able to do now when I am 50? And if I keep exercising, I'm going to have this decline, but I always want to stay. My goal is to be that well, that long. 150, Ron, why only 150? That's just, it's an arbitrary number. It could be 200, they could say 100, whatever it is. It's 150 because for a while there was a discussion about living to be 150. And it stuck as a title. And what happened to my Zoom connection? Hello, Zoom. What did you do? Still there. Isn't Zoom wonderful? I don't know if I can share the videos or not.
Well, if Tom Walsh can show them, I looked at my email, I don't have them. And I'm recording, so it's easier for someone else, for me to record.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
you shouldn't be recording videos anyway, but yeah.
No, I don't want to record. I'm not going to, but if you're showing them, it's easier for me to stop the recording and start it again.
Okay.
Rather than doing both showing and recording.
Okay. Just the first video in the list, Tom.
Okay, just before I do that, I want to make a comment. I'm going to, my next presentation is going to be on longevity. And I'm going to go a little bit beyond what you're talking about today, I think. But if we do live to be 150, then we have a chance at immortality, because I think by that time, there will be rejuvenation treatments that we can undergo to extend our lives even beyond that. So
it's possible, yeah. They might come even faster.
Yeah. I doubt that it'll be fast enough for most of us, but we'll see. Let's see if I can bring up my email. Let's see, too many windows open here.
While you're figuring that out, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Okay. My understanding is that aging is essentially a genetic wasting disorder. And there's definitely a distinction between trying to figure out ways to kind of hang on, and prolong your life that way, and then trying to arrest the process or potentially reverse it. And I think, I don't know, I heard something, and I think Elon Musk was talking about the potential of every year getting an additional year. So if, depending on when you come in and the adoption of this stuff, and assuming that the process works, it's kind of like that whole thing with, computer, power increasing at an ever increasing rate, that maybe your timing could be right, that you could end up. And I think the target he mentioned was 150, which I'm sure came from somebody else. But
yeah. I don't know where the 150 first came from. I really don't. It's been around for a long time though.
Maybe it's just like somebody arbitrarily picked it because it seems like, it's substantial enough to get people's attention, but it's not so outlandish as to seem completely implausible.
Yeah.
Well, it's in this first link that you sent me, Tom, which is not a video, it's an article. It's with David Sinclair and Jae-Hyun Yang. And
okay, no, that's the okay. I'm sorry. Skip the article and go to the next link.
I was just going to say the title of that article is "Has the First Person to Live to Be 150 Been Born?" So it's an interesting article. But did you post that on the Meetup site itself?
No, I did not post. I don't have the Meetup password.
Oh, okay.
So you're gonna be running out of your email. I'm sorry.
So the next one then is aging reversible?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get this.
Let me dig up my own copy of the mail.
I have my hand up. Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Okay, one is that from the perspective of evolution, death is not a bug, it's a feature. Without death, there would not be evolution. Without death, natural selection wouldn't operate. Without death, we would not be here, we would not have evolved. So that's one point. And the other point is that living forever is probably not possible, because every once in a while, I think Arthur Clarke said something like this, that every once in a while a person would have to flush their brain because they would reach the storage capacity, and flushing a person's brain would be equivalent to death. There is limited storage capacity for information, and clearing the information would be basically death. So probably immortality, according to Arthur C. Clarke, is impossible.
I think there's one other hand up. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Or should I show this?
Okay. Who else had their hand? Oh, see a hand.
Oh, I had dropped it. I was just going to mention that certain critters don't really evolve by the normal way we think of death. I think Planera divide. So to a certain extent, every Planera around now is the original one.
They are probably very susceptible to parasites because they're clones, and that's why sex evolved, to protect us from parasites.
Well, it's an
And so-
interesting topic though, because there are things that you know that operate differently, and they still do have variation just through different mechanism.
Right.
And they are mostly very simple. So I mean,
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Good point.
Yeah, humans and most other living things on Earth have oh, I forgot what they're called, telomeres or something on the ends of their DNA. And there's a limited number of those, and they disappear over time, and then you die. However,
It
there
can
are
be
some,
reattached.
well, then you get cancer usually. But there are some
But
plants that do not suffer from that affliction, you might say, and are essentially immortal as far as we can tell. But anyway, I have, can you see the thing I'm sharing here?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and play it.
the this is a wonderful promise. I can see a number of political and emotional and financial and the number of problems that could come if that was available. If I could be perpetually 76. But why should I stop there? Why shouldn't I go back to 35? I mean, I hate to say, is the government going to step in and say, well, only members of Congress can do this? Talk about a hereditary government. This is wonderful, and it's scary at the same time. But in the meanwhile, we don't have that. I mean, we have it in the lab, but we don't have it in our daily life. So how do we get to the point where we can have that? That calls for us to do better with the life we have now. And that's the next video. What do you do to live your longest possible life now? And there are some strange things that you have to do. Some of them your mother told you and you just ignored.
Okay, do you want me to show the next video?
Next video, please.
Now, in your email, well, this is the last one, I guess. It's 47 minutes long, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That should take us to about 11:25 or thereabouts. But this is really a condensation of
men and a third of women who will have a heart attack.
All right.
Thank you, Peter, for joining me on Zoe's Science and Nutrition today.
So
stop sharing.
your plan for the future, should you wish to embark on it is to eat right, exercise right, talk to your therapist or your support group, and walk.
And sleep.
And sleep, yes. He advocates 8 hours of sleep a night. I have tried this over the years and I find that it really helps me. Advice from other people, that was. It's very difficult to do. If I get up at 6, that means I have to go to sleep at 10. And the sleep hygiene in my home is not very good. My wife prefers to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning listening to things on her tablet. And I put earplugs in and bury my head under a pillow. But yeah, the ideal sleeping conditions are that it is cold, dark, and quiet. The image I was given as a child was sleeping in a cave. The walking is, so far for me, easy. I know for some people it's not. But walking 5 miles a day, 8 miles a day, 4 miles a day, depending on any number of formulas can tell you how far you should walk. It takes time. And the time you spend exercising, building strength, cardio, VO2, you end up you're spending 3 hours a day, maybe more. The reward of which is that you get maybe another 10 to 20 years to do those 3 hours a day. And then you can do the other things that you want to do. It isn't a do it once and forget about it. You have to really step into it. You have to take care of your own body. The system isn't going to do it for you. The system cannot do it for you. It's not that the system doesn't like you. The system loves you. But it just can't do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. And if you are not interested in doing it for yourself, the system doesn't care. We can talk about this some if you want, or we can go on and have more of other people. He talks to people about other things, and other people talk to other people about other parts of it. But really, what are people's reactions to this news? This message?
I think it all makes sense. He looks like he does strength exercises more than 1 hour a week.
I would believe he does. In his youth, he was a professional football player, I think. And he had a bad accident that left him bedbound, actually in a cage, so he couldn't move for several weeks while he worked on his spine. And he went on and became a medical doctor and got into this. I don't want to. And other people think he's extreme. And in some ways, he is. But when you look at his body and you look at the people who are saying you're too extreme, and you think, well, Peter's extreme and looks like a minor deity. And he swims. So I've seen photos of him in a swimming suit. And other people think he's doing too much, and you see pictures of them, and you think, oh, wait a minute, do I want to look like this, or do I want to look like this? Which of these guys are going to die of old age? Oh, we're all going to die of old age. But do you want to die of old age looking like a tub, or do you want to die of old age looking like a dead god? Your choice. My wife is kind of poo-pooing some of this, but I remember being that fit. And I want to get back there. It's going to be hard. It's frankly not going to be possible. But I can lose another 60 pounds. And I can put some more muscle on. I can do more walking. I can do more sit-ups. I can do more push-ups. I can lift weights. And I can spend an hour or two a day doing this rather than sitting on my backside watching politicians babble on the TV. Or if I'm really interested in the politicians, I can listen to them on my headset as I'm doing these things. But I have been blessed throughout my life, and in some ways I know that's a consequence of work that I did earlier on this. This is not my first foray into the life extension by whatever. And I've tried a number of different things. Some of them, well, the net result of all of them is that I'm still here. None of them killed me. Chasing strange Southeast Asian seaweeds. Yeah, that was kind of a challenge, and I gave up on that diet plan. It was called the chronically optimized nutrition for life plan. It was probably a good plan if you could do it. As far as eating, it didn't say anything about exercise. This is of I don't know how many books I have about proper eating and proper diet and life extension. ATIs make sense. The idea that health span is different than lifespan. Do you want to die laying in your bed? Do you want to die having carried your grandchildren up the hill to the roller coaster? You get to choose. Well, no, you don't get to choose, but you get to change the possibilities. If you're bedbound at 80, When death comes, he'll find you there. If you're out exercising at 80 and death says it's your time, he may have to chase you down. I would consider this a feature. Other comments? We have a bunch of other videos, but they're about how to do muscle strength and how worrying about your APOBs, worrying about statins, worrying about the probably in the time we have left. If you go down the list, it's kind of compressed. 6 minutes and 30 seconds, the top 5 exercises he has to prolong your life. They're to prolong your life. But I'm really more interested in what people have to say.
Okay, I have a couple other things that to mention. One, you seem to be concentrating on diet. That's important. Probably something like the Mediterranean diet is the best type of diet for a healthy longevity. Whole foods. It allows meat, but it's limited meat, I think. But also sleep is something that he mentioned but didn't really get into a lot. Sleep is really important, not only for your whole body but for your brain, especially. And I mean, I've noticed when I go golfing, if I had 6 hours or less of sleep that the previous night, I don't golf as well because my timing's off. My coordination just isn't as good as if I've had full night's sleep. So that affects not only you physically, but recall and all types of memory and all types of things, because your brain's doing a lot of stuff when you're sleeping. And the other thing, exercise also is really important for the brain. If you're, it's good for the body so you can remain mobile and strong, but it's also very important for the brain. Because the increased blood flow to the brain and that type of thing can make a big difference in how well the brain functions. So we really didn't get into that. I know that there's a lot more videos you listed here. I don't know. I agree we probably don't have time for them, but some concentrate on heart, exercise, mental abilities, and sleeps. I do want to mention one more thing. The American Heart Association recommends, basically based just on age, if you're over 60, you should be taking statins. I think they're kind of enthralled to the pharmaceutical industry, actually, for doing that. I've kind of had a deal with my own doctor that as long as I keep my cholesterol or I guess cholesterol below 200, he's not going to prescribe statins for me. And now that I'm 75, he says, well, they don't recommend them for anyone over 75 anymore anyway, probably because they think you're going to die and it doesn't matter.
You should really look at the video there about statins.
What does it say?
They're good for you. The biochemistry of blood is complicated, but statins, it appears, actually help your body properly process getting rid of things you don't want. Might be a way to put it, if I understand it correctly. I want to watch
understand-
that one. I
I
want to watch
understand
that
there are
one.
negative side effects to them also.
Yes, there are. There are negative side effects to all of this. You get to choose. I don't like the statin that I'm on. And I've asked about changing it, and my doctor and I are going to have another go around about that in a couple of weeks. And I don't know if I'll end up on a different statin or if I'll end up on a lower dose of this one or a different compounding of different manufacturer of this drug, the particular drug I'm taking. But something's going to change.
What are you taking?
It's a genetic for Crestor. But different genetics have, how can I say this? The FDA has ways of testing drugs, and those are not, the results from those things do not always work the same way in the body. There are I take a thing called, I have a thyroid problem, and so I take a thyroid supplement. And there are, basically one, it's called Synthroid, but it's made by 5 different companies.
Yes.
And the results I get from the different brands of Synthroid vary. Chemically, they're the same. And I've had long discussions with my doctor and her supervisor about how this can be. And he says his best guess is that they are manufactured using different processes. And so the angles of the joints in the drug, it's a long thing with multiple pieces put together. But if you put them together, if you put these 2 pieces together, you get this angle. If you put these 2 pieces together, you get this angle. But if you put these pieces together, then they can form different angles here. And that means they're going to work differently in your body. But chemically, they're the same. They have different, slightly different crystal structures that are more or less helpful. And this is a known factor if you really get into this. And it is known that some people do better with this brand of Synthroid, and other people do better with brand B, and other people do best with brand C. Now, these are supposedly identical substances, but I have done this double-blind test where I don't know what I'm taking, and this is the result after a month, and then we change it. This one for I am not going to explain it. It's not anything conscious on my part. It's how my body works. And Terry's body works differently. Why? We don't know. What to do about it? We do know what to do about. You administer the drug, you measure the results in the patient. And if you don't get good results, you change the drug. You can't get a new patient. That doesn't count. You try a different drug. until you get a desirable result. But that's, in my way of thinking, that's actually practicing medicine. It is a practice. You try and you see if you get a good result. But, and that's true of a lot of these things. But it is pretty much known that if you get, I mean, good Lord, you go back to Socrates, he needs 8 hours of sleep a night. I don't think he said 8 hours. I think he did from more than half the night asleep. I'm sorry. This is a hobby horse, if you haven't noticed, of my own. I'm gonna, Stan, you're next.
Could I just interject?
Sure.
What you were talking about is like protein folding.
Yeah.
The different angles will have different activities.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the receptors in your cells, which
Mm-hmm.
one's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Stan.
Well, this might be just a bit of a testimony. I was able to, in fact, in this room I'm in right now, I had an elliptical, and over here I had a weight bench, and I had a pull-up station. I had a very severe, up until about 2012, very severe regiment of physical conditioning. I did a half hour of weights and a half hour of cardio. The downside for me, the thing was that I was at a time when I was working, I was teaching, and I was in a position to be able to do it. And during the time of the day, I could get my shower in, go to work, and I had a chance to do that on a regular basis. And when I didn't have that job anymore, I don't want to, this may sound strange, but getting a shower in afterwards, and I do elliptical, I'm a sweaty mess. Mm-hmm. And I think that the one thing that I might point out about his zone 1 versus zone 2, I think that if you're breaking a sweat, you're probably approaching zone 1, or you're getting to that where you're getting some kind of a zone 1 performance. Or anyway, if he made it sound like you can't talk to somebody while you're doing it, you can't talk comfortably. Whatever it is, you can kind of tell when you're in zone 1 versus zone 2. But this is just a testimony. I went to a job where I was pretty much sedentary, sitting on my desk doing graphics 8 hours a day and not doing the exercising that I was doing. And I can tell you that it's challenging. I have to be careful. Walking down steps is something I have to hold on to the railing for. Mm-hmm. I usually go at a 45-degree angle. For some reason, I feel more secure walking at a 45-degree angle when I'm going down steps. And I'm probably I'm able to do a diet that is, I'm as low as I've been for a long time. And so that's another story. So it's possible to achieve a pretty good weight. You know, if you have a target weight, you can get your target weight just by doing diet. Mostly it's portion control. And I would also say that about sleep, I'm a big advocate for sleep. And there is a Matt Walker on YouTube who is very good. There's a very good interview with Matt Walker and Lex Freeman, but Matt Walker has some of his own YouTubes himself. And Matt Walker, my psychiatrist is very big on Matt Walker as well. So I would suggest him as being somebody to check out. He talks about, you know, you got your REM sleep and your non-REM sleep. And also some people talk about using some kind of pharmaceutical, recreational pharmaceutical or whatever. he calls that sedation sleep, and he doesn't think sedation sleep is very high quality.
Okay. I think next is Vika.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this was mentioned or not, but one of the things that I find extremely important when it comes to aging or longevity is the amount of stress that people go through. So some of this concerns mental health, some of the stress could come from physical health. And I find it to be a doomed cycle, really, because on one hand, if you have mental health issues, if you're going through severe or chronic stress, it could affect your blood pressure, it could affect your cardiovascular health, it could affect your digestive system. So you could be obese, you could be dealing with anorexia and all those kind of eating disorders. Another thing that comes to mind, one of the things that helps people actually have longer lives is getting educated. That helps you be motivated to live longer. However, if you're dealing with mental health issues, generalized anxiety, chronic anxiety, just the idea that you don't have enough focus, brain fog, and all those things could affect your mental health, again, add to your anxiety. And I think anxiety by itself, loneliness, chronic anxiety, stress, severe amount of stress, going for a long time could actually affect a woman's health. I think it shortens the life for a woman by 7 years and for men by 10 years, which I find very significant. And there are many other health issues that we could get from this. I think some of the cancers could be triggered by severe stress. Sicknesses or diseases like fibromyalgia could come from severe stress, which, again, I just find really important. It's not always about what we eat or how much we exercise, but it's also about keeping a good mental health system, support system, having compassion, and just having care for one another is extremely important. Thank you.
Carol.
Yes. About 6 months ago, shortly after I turned 79, I had an extremely cautionary experience that turned out to be, what was it the doctor said? We're starting to see a lot of this in elderly patients who have been taking statin drugs for over 10 years. And what it amounted to was that I went to bed and went to sleep on a Monday night, feeling about like I always feel on a Monday night. And when I woke up in the morning and Tuesday morning and got out of bed, all of my voluntary muscles were extremely weak. I could walk, but it was precarious. And I found out that if I sat down in a chair, I couldn't get out of said chair. My leg muscles were insufficient for me to stand up. I had to have something to, hold on to and drag myself out of the chair. This scared the hell out of me, of course. So I called a relative and said, "Hey, would you drive me to the hospital?" And the first thing the people in the hospital did was take me off of all the drugs I was taking. You know, they took away my blood pressure medicine. They took away my statins, you know. I was taking several, you know, sort of maintenance drugs, and they got rid of all of them. And over the next 4 days, they tested for everything. I mean, you know, the one of the doctors said, well, I'm even testing you for Lyme disease, because with climate change, you know, we're starting to see those, what is it, ticks in the spring in Minnesota. So anyway, went through, I mean, I had MRIs, I had, you know, they tested everything they could think of. And let's see. After 3 days of this, I felt exactly the same. You know, I could get out of the hospital bed because it was basically a slide. You know, I'm very short. And holding on to the pole with the IV, I could walk about, but nothing changed. On the 4th morning there, I woke up and the problem was gone. And at that point, the doctor came in and said, well, we are starting to see this sort of thing, as he said, in elderly patients who had been taking statins for more than 10 years. So, you know, I give you that as a cautionary tale. You know, what they did to fix it was simply, I wasn't taking statins anymore.
Do they know anything about the mechanism for that?
If they did, they didn't tell me. I mean, this is what they call a diagnosis of exclusion. You know, we tried everything, and it looks like the fact that you're off of statins is probably why you got better. And that there was a, you know, there was a statistical, we're starting to see this sudden bout of extreme muscular weakness in elderly patients who have been taking statins for a long time. And they could not give me any mechanism. But I'm not taking statins anymore.
Jason, could you stop sharing your screen, or is there a purpose for this?
I'm not sure how I did it in the first place, but how do I stop sharing?
Well, at the top of the screen, you should have a button that says stop sharing or something like that. If you're on a phone, I don't know how it works.
I pasted 2 messages in the chat that have a bunch of links to other videos that I passed over in favor of the one we saw. I think they're all worth watching. Some of them are short, some of them are long. Not all of them are Attia. If you go off to YouTube and Google longevity and exercise, you will get all sorts of things. Like I said, there's 30 books on the shelf at the used bookstore, and I don't think any of them were more than 10 years old. It's a hot topic, and I urge you to take all of it with a huge grain of salt. If someone has, I have the one true way. It's possible, but why do all of these other people think their way is better? And it's not just that. Basically, okay, if they are selling you something, protein powder, exercise bands, whatever, they may have good ideas, but they're trying to sell you something. Peter, at least, is honest. He's trying to sell the book. But I was hooked on him long before this book came along. This isn't his first book either. Most of them have written several books. But this one it's readable. It makes sense. And it doesn't seem to contradict much of what everybody else is saying. It's just a fairly simple plan. Move your body, get your sleep, eat good food, not too much of it. Get your head in order, get your soul in order. And enjoy your life. If you're torturing yourself as an ongoing basis, this is probably not good for you. I mean, yeah, doing 5 minutes on a stress ball, yeah, that's torture. But it's done, but it's over. If it's ongoing, then not so good. And daily exercise. I mean, I've done Tai Chi since the early 1970s. I had a bad fall a couple of years ago, and some of the people in the group I was with saw this. And when I came to the clinic Monday morning, they were all ready for me. Two of the people in the group happened to be nurses who worked at the clinic. And this was back when I was huge. And we're all ready for you, but first you have to go see the ortho guy. Okay. And I look at it, he says, well, the only question is which of the tendons in your knee tore. And so drop your trousers and hop up on the table and we'll figure this out. And he weighs my right leg about, and he puts it down, stares at me, and picks it up again. Okay, I see the other leg. He waves around my left leg, and he says, give me your right hand, and he waves my right arm around. He says, okay. He says, just a minute. And he calls and he cancels all sorts of things. And he says, okay. He says, what you have is a grade 2 sprain. Now, why are you more flexible than my patients who are half your age or less? I've had teenagers whose joints weren't as flexible as you are. And well, I've done Tai Chi since I was in my early 20s. He says, how often? Every day, maybe every other day. He says, well, you take all the money that you paid for all those lessons over the years, he says, and this money you've saved up and you're not going to be spending on surgery now. He says, damn, Tai Chi, that really works. Yeah. It's taking care of your body means your body will take care of you. I'm happy for you, Carol.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I've had too many friends who've had encounters with modern medicine that ended up not coming out better. You seem to have escaped.
Yeah, well, okay.
Temporarily.
I do have a question. I arrived very late because of some computer issues. Have you, as part of this discussion, was there any talk about telomeres and aging?
I briefly mentioned them, but no other than that.
I don't think that there's anything in the no. If you get into the our 40-minute piece that's listed in the comments or chat, I think he talks about it a little bit. If you Google Huberman and telomeres and Hyman, you can get a long discussion about what the future of that is, if it has a future, what it all means. Are we messing with God's work? Why do these things get undone that we need to reattach them? Is this some kind of a natural clock that we're not supposed to be resetting? Can we reset it? Should we reset it? What happens if we put too many of them back? There are more questions than there are answers. But if you Google it, you can find discussions of it. I just passed over them because I was more interested in the exercise, sleep, drugs, diet combination.
Yeah,
Telomeres are still on the
it's almost
next plate.
It's quarter after, so we should hang it up. But telomeres basically are the ends on the ends of your I think it's the RNA strands or something, and to kind of keep it from unraveling. And when your cells divide or reproduce, you lose one of these on the end each time, pretty much. And so after a number of divisions, there aren't any telomeres left at the ends of the strands, and the strands can their integrity gets lost, and the cells die. And that leads to if you get enough of that over time, when enough of your cells die, you're going to get chronic diseases and die. So that's what that's about. And there are methods to preserve or add telomeres apparently to the ends, the strands, but there are possible side effects such as cancer. These cells can continue overproduce at some point if you're doing that, and not die off as maybe they should in some cases. So there's lots of research that needs to go on there.
Yeah.
So we should probably, it was an interesting presentation, Tom. I especially like those 2 videos that we saw.
Yeah, he's a very good speaker. And when he gets into conversations with other researchers in the field, they really go at it. You can't believe that.
If I could ask Tom or one of the Toms to send me the video listing so I can put it up with the video that I produce on YouTube.
I will send you the email I sent to Tom, and for those of you who want to see more, if you look in the chat, currently the last 2, there are 2 messages there that have a bunch of them. But I will send you a copy of the email that had all of them.
I think I'm finding out that I can put a lot of these kind of stuff in the description on YouTube. So I might just cut and paste the entire email that you give me into the description on YouTube. And Carol, I need your videos so I can finish your video as well, because I've got your YouTube video about ready to go. So if you could send me your videos from your last meeting, your last presentation.
Okay, as I recall, the address of the videos is in the slides for the presentation.
Right, but I was learning how to I was learning how to record that day, and I wasn't recording to my own computer, and I didn't start recording until after the first presentation. So you're right. But I didn't. But I don't have that information.
Okay, I will. Well, first of all, give me a mailing address for you.
Okay, well, I gotta go. So thanks a lot. See you next week.
Mailing address.
I'm sending the email, right?
Yes, your email address that I can send this to.
I'm going to do it in the chat right now.
Well,
Okay, there you go. There's my email address. stanb3d@gmail.com.
Yeah, sent. Email sent.
And what I'm finding out, both Tom and Carol are still here. I'm learning a lot about YouTube and about how to do chapters and so forth. But I'm gonna put a lot of stuff like I'm gonna put all of the contents of that email. I might edit it a little bit, but I'm gonna cut and paste that and put it in the description of YouTube. So that will make it easier for people to look up those videos as well.
This is a fascinating topic, and I don't think the obligatory science fiction residence, of course, is Time Enough for Love. Lazarus Long was naturally born nearly immortal, or perhaps immortal. He kept getting himself killed. But a lot of this, it's spooky almost. When they pick him up and they talk about regrowing him, and I can see where that's the The Howard families went away and they came back to Earth that had life extension. And it's like, we're here. This is what the people who stayed behind found. They didn't need the Howard families, but the Howard families could use the techniques too.
I remember I was actually using the term Groundhog's Day without having even seen the movie. And I used to think of it as being, well, it's just like when you get to a point in your life where every day seems the same, that's like a Groundhog's Day. When I actually saw the movie, I didn't realize that he was being killed and then coming back the next day, and then being killed again and coming back the next day, and then being killed again and coming back the next day. And he didn't actually have a chance to stop the cycle until he had established the perfect relationship with this gal that he wanted to be with and so forth. So, I mean, there was a little bit more nuance to that than I had. Having seen the film actually increased my appreciation for Bill Murray, as an actor.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Any rate, Carol, you got the email address?
Yes.
Okay, and that, Tom, that would work for you too.
Yeah, you should already have.
Okay.
The page.
All right, well, when I close it down, everybody's gonna be done, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop recording.